It looks like, overly Botox lips. I just want to get out. It's really uncomfortable.
Now you'd think that an engine designer and builder that had been doing it as long as they have, well, you'd think they'd be able to build something really good, right?
Okay, so what's it like to drive? Well, it's Okay, strap yourself in because we're going to take you through everything that can go wrong with these fascinating machines. We're going to show you how they've aged, what they like to live with and drive. Most importantly, but we're going to tell you if we think you should buy one or not. But before we get to all of that, there's some critical stuff that you need to know. The RCZ was ostensibly Peugeot's answer to the Audi TT, and in the same way that the stylish German borrows plenty from the Volkswagen parts bin, the RCZ shares loads with far more humble Peugeots. And being a Peugeot, you probably assume that this thing is French, don't you? Well, it's not French, it's not even made by Peugeot, it's made under license in Austria by the same company that makes the Mini Countryman and the Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon. Now, all RCZs are front-wheel drive and you can choose between either a diesel or a petrol engine. That petrol engine as well, it's available in a few different states of tune. Although, unfortunately, no matter if you're choosing between the diesel or the petrol or whatever state of tune, these engines can suffer from a few gremlins, but we'll cover that shortly. But here's where things can get, honestly, a bit confusing. See, when these were new, Peugeot offered a whole bunch of different option packs for the car. You need to know if or which option pack was fitted to the car you're looking at so you don't pay too much. Now, we'll take you through what each of these option packs have in a moment, but this particular car is fitted with the Monaco pack. Noisy seagulls. However, on top of all of that, in 2013, the RCZ was updated, featuring the usual facelift and additional features, plus a very special limited edition RCZ-R was released, and only 35 made it to Aussie shores. And then we come to potentially the most appealing part of the RCZ is the price. The most affordable ones here in Australia are asking as little as $11,000. Even the most expensive ones, under $30,000. If that's a smart financial choice to make, we'll find out in good time. But you know what is a smart financial choice to make? It's getting your car finance sorted through Driver. Now look, I'm not going to bore you with all of the details, but even if you have current car finance, do you know categorically that you have the best possible finance package? Why not hit the Driver link down there, because you could save yourself thousands, and if you do sort all of your car finance via that link, we're going to give you $150 worth of free fuel. Now, if you don't love the way this thing looks, I'm really sorry, you have appalling taste. Seriously. Even if you're not into this, you've got to congratulate Peugeot for taking some huge design risks. I mean, like, just look at it. I mean, this is one of the very few production cars that looks near identical to the concept car. I mean, here's the concept car, and here's this. They look pretty much the same. However, even though the wheel arches and this beautiful aluminium piece here and the double bubble roof are just so sexy, there's a design, I'm not going to call it a mistake, but I'm not into this. It's this section here. It looks like, overly Botox lips. Just that's, yeah. They fixed it up with a facelift, but this one, just a bit. Actually, just on that update, it also included xenon headlights, some DRLs, the wheels grew to 19 inches, and the whole car copped a bunch of nice little black accents. Prior to the update, you still get fog lights, front and rear parking sensors, automatic headlights, rain sensing wipers, and the wheels were 18s. Although with this car being the Monaco pack, you get bi-xenon headlights and washers. The Monaco pack also adds a premium JBL sound system, but even in the early base models, the amount of features that you get are pretty good. You get Bluetooth, dual zone climate control, leather trim, power adjustable most things, plus all of this and more. The update basically consists of mainly aesthetic changes, but the RCZ-R, it gets leather and Alcantara Recaro style seats with red stitching, because red stitching goes faster. Now obviously with the age of these things, you can forget about Apple CarPlay or Android Auto being fitted as standard, but there are plenty of aftermarket kits out there and owners recommend fitting them. Owners also recommend fitting a reversing camera while you're at it. But there's an issue with this interior. Actually, it's not just this interior, it seems like all French car interiors, and I know from experience because I've owned my fair share of French cars, it's the bloody ergonomics. First of all, the seating position. Now, I'm pretty lucky with this one because I actually find this not too bad, but plenty of owners have complained that if you get this steering wheel in the right position, then your legs are all sort of cramped up. But then if you get your legs in the right position, the steering wheel is too far away. Basically, if you're built like an orangutan, you're gonna have no problems. And then when you get into a good driving position, actually touching the stereo controls is near impossible unless you've got the world's longest arms. Like, that is, yeah, not great. Also, this is really annoying. when you're changing gear, my elbow smashes into this, like the funny bone part of the elbow. So you're constantly like, every time you change gears. Really annoying. Then if you want to put the windows down, you've got to become like a T-Rex to get your hand to actually get to the window switches. Then you've got the pedal box. If they'd just moved the pedals to the right this much, it would make sense, because my right foot has a really nice place to rest when the cruise control's on, but my left foot, granted, I've got enormous feet, my left foot just constantly kind of gets caught on the clutch pedal. It's just bloody annoying. And then some of the infotainment controls and just general controls are hidden behind the steering wheel, so you have to memorize what each button does. Obviously you will do that over time, but when you're getting used to the car, you don't know really what anything does, and they're not illuminated. But look, it's not all bad news. There's plenty of good news in here. The overall design, I personally love. Some people say it's aging badly. I totally disagree. I think it looks fantastic. The comfort of the seats, these seats are great, very supportive, but at the same time comfortable. Wear and tear in this car, this has got over 100,000 Ks on it. It's from 2011, it is used all the time. Wear and tear is great. The leather's supple, door cards are in good nick. There's still some texture on the steering wheel, even the gloss black plastic. Granted, it's not in a high traffic area, but it looks fantastic. The chrome everywhere, really nice. There are some obvious cost-cutting bits and pieces, like the plastic's a little bit scratchy, and yeah, there's a few noises and a bit of movement to some control surfaces and high traffic areas, but overall, for what these things cost and the age and kilometers this one's done, fantastic. Now, as far as practicality up front goes, you'd expect being a sports car, it would be terrible. It's not too bad. First of all, spot perfectly sized for your macaroon just here, another spot for another macaroon just there. Got a spot for your phone perfectly right there. You've got another little storage cubby hole just here. The door bins are actually a good size, so you can fit a bottle of your favorite sparkly just there, which is quite good. There's another little cubby hole just here for that. You've also got your little slidey armrest, which is also good storage just there. An absolutely tiny glove box. It's not even a glove box, it's rubbish. You've got a little net just here for that. Be careful of that squishy. And I think that's it for practicality up front. Now, before we get into the back seat, you've got to know these doors are huge and pretty heavy. And even getting into the back seat, yeah, it does require a bit of gymnastics. Now, speaking of things that are French but technically aren't French at all, I'm exactly 10 centimeters taller than stylish actor Timothée Chalamet. This is in my driving position, and as you can see, it is incredibly spacious back here. I've got so much room, heaps of room to move, does not feel claustrophobic in the slightest. Obviously, I'm joking. This is ridiculous. I know they have a back seat because of legislation issues and tax and all that sort of stuff, but it is not a back seat. It is so uncomfortable. I want to get out. I'm melting in here. As far as features and practicality back here, well, I don't know. I can't actually get my hands anywhere to see if there are any features or practicality. As far as wear and tear, yeah, none. You'd be an idiot to sit back here. I just want to get out. It's really uncomfortable. We'd normally cut to the part where I'm in the boot now, but even just getting out, hang on. Classy. But then where they have added some practicality and space is in the boot. This is a huge boot. It's not a lift back like an Audi TT, but also when you put the seats down, that's a good amount of space. Pretty comfy. Okay, so what's it like to drive? Well, it's bloody brilliant most of the time. See, here's the thing. Other cars in this particular segment, Audi TT, here in the real world at normal speeds can feel almost identical to the hatchbacks that they're based on. I mean, sure, when you're having a proper punt, the sports car vibes do shine through in those other cars, but in this thing, it feels special and unique, even when you're not having a punt. Also, the hardcore car nerds of you out there might criticize this for not having true performance car levels of dynamics and whatnot. But you've got to remember, a lot of people, they don't want Nürburgring levels of performance. They just want to be able to drive around in something that looks like a piece of art that's just really enjoyable to drive. And this thing nails that brief. Plus, if you want a sexy French truck-dominating weapon, may I suggest the Renault Megane RS. Funnily enough, we have made a full review video of that car. The link is down below. But as wonderful as this car is to drive, there are some negatives, I'm sorry. First of all, there are quite a few plastic rattles going on. It's not terrible, it's nowhere near as bad as the internet would lead you to believe, but you can hear there's a bit of brittleness forming. Then, we mentioned it before, the ergonomics. This left foot issue, every time I take my foot off the clutch and it kind of gets caught on the clutch pedal, that's frustrating. And even though the seats themselves are so comfortable, my body positioning I just can't become one with the car. And then the shift feel, maybe it's just age, maybe it just needs some new bushes, or maybe a short shift kit would help it, but it's like nothing on Mazda MX-5 levels of accuracy with the shift. But besides all of that, the amount of power is fantastic for the real world, and the engine sounds great. The suspension feels totally sorted. It's on the firm side, as it should be. It is a performance sports car, but it's never uncomfortable, totally compliant. Overall, I was really worried that it would feel like a budget French hatchback just trying to wear a fancy outfit, but it doesn't. It feels more like a premium French hot hatch wearing really expensive activewear. But what happens if you suddenly run out of talent when you're in this position? What are the safety features like? Well, to take you through the safety features, it does seem only right that we have my French mate Julia take you through what this car has.
Au minimum, vous bénéficierez de 4 airbags, de freins anti-blocage, de la répartition électronique de la force de freinage, de l'assistance au freinage, du contrôle de stabilité électronique, du contrôle de traction et de l'assistance au démarrage en côte. Et comme toujours, pour les détails spécifiques, rendez-vous sur ReDriven.com et consultez la fiche mémo.
And then we come to the unfortunate part of the video. What goes wrong with these? Let's start with the exterior, and specifically underneath. See, the jacking points are notoriously bad, just under-engineered, and apparently made from the gooeyest of French cheese. In fact, they're so susceptible to damage, one owner actually told us that his car was purchased from a Peugeot dealer manager, and 3 of the 4 jacking points needed repairing. Even Peugeot service departments can stuff them up. Next up, the gorgeous aluminium roof rails can oxidize over time if they're not cared for, and replacing these is eye-wateringly expensive. Okay, this is a really dangerous one. If your wiper blades are like old and crusty, you're not going to be able to see where you're going when it rains. Luckily, Wiper Tech can help with that. Simply hit the link below to get 15% off and free express shipping on some of the best wiper blades we've ever used. They're easy to order online, they're shipped to your door, they're easy to fit, and they're bloody awesome. Next up, anything made of plastic such as the door handles or the mirrors, they're getting quite brittle and can crack and even break. Apparently, if the car's garaged, kept away from the sun, it's less of an issue. And then, anything with electricity running to it can have issues, such as the lights, the mirror adjusters, door lock actuators, through to the powered rear spoiler having issues. But it's interesting to know, some owners have had all of the electrical gremlins, but then other cars like this one have had none of them. Actually, just on this car, a massive thank you to Henry for lending us your car. You're a legend, mate. And also to all of the owners groups and forums that helped us research this. We couldn't have made this video without you. You guys are the best. And then inside, it's just more persistent electrical gremlins. Some owners like Henry have never had an issue, but then other owners have had all of the issues. We're talking everything from power window switches failing to air conditioning controls no longer working. Basically, if it has electricity running to it, make sure it works. That said, even if it is working when you buy the car, there's a chance that it will eventually fail. The good news there is, but some of these problems are very cheap and easy to fix. Other times, they're not. Also, owners have reported that some of the leather trim can get a bit saggy and a bit loose, like not adhered to its thing anymore. Not in this car, but it does happen. Also, it can depend on the seat you're looking at. The side bolsters can get overly squishy. Also, according to many owners, there can be a persistent rattle from the dash. It's generally an air vent that hasn't been installed correctly. There are loads of tutorials online to show how to fix it. Not hard. And then finally, with problems inside, the infotainment system. Loads of owners complain about this. Sometimes the screen that pops up and down out of the dash, it can fail. The screen itself can fail. Some of the controls can fail. Bluetooth can drop in and out. Even as far as the interface that you use, it's not intuitive at all. It can be an absolute nightmare. As I mentioned before, many owners just recommend fitting an aftermarket system. Bin this, get a new one. And then we come to mechanically what can go wrong with these. I'm really sorry, I can't tell you. I'm not a qualified mechanic. Jim is.
Now, the 4-cylinder petrol in these, the EP6, was a joint venture between Peugeot and Citroën and BMW. Now, you'd think that an engine designer and builder that had been doing it as long as they have, well, you'd think they'd be able to build something really good, right? Well, you'd be wrong, because they're actually a bit shit. They're actually a lot shit. Look, we'll start with the timing chain issues. If you have the internet, you probably already know about this. The timing chain issues on these are very common. The tensioners can break, the guides can fail, and the chain can just stretch and break and have a catastrophic failure. It's a very serious problem. If you're looking at one, it's probably not a bad bet to either make sure the timing chain has been done, or if you buy one as a preventative measure, probably get the timing chain done anyway. Oil consumption in these is another big problem, and even if they've been well serviced, they can have oil consumption issues. Now, low oil on these things, or chronically low oil on these things, can have a detrimental effect on an already very fragile timing chain setup. So if you have one, just keep the oil up to it. Check it frequently, top it up all the time. And those oil consumption issues, also when the oil gets low, that affects the turbo, which also is prone to fail, quite often from oil starvation. Not just from low oil, but also the oil pressure supply line has a strainer in it. Sometimes that gets blocked up. Again, from lack of servicing, that can be an issue as well. So fresh oil, keep it topped up. The turbos also have a problem with their wastegate rattling as well. Typically doesn't make it fail, but if the rattle gets bad enough, the wastegate can actually break off and cause a catastrophic failure. The high pressure fuel pump in these is another common problem, and they can be a bit pricey too. Now, in some markets, you can actually get reconditioned pumps, so it's definitely worthwhile to see if that's an option or not. Now, the oil cooler on these, it's located underneath the turbo and underneath the manifold. It often fails. Quite often it leaks externally. Other times it just leaks internally and you get engine oil in your coolant and coolant in your engine oil. That cross-contamination makes a terrible mess. That's actually a fairly common problem, so keep an eye out for that. The thermostat and the coolant outlet that's on the back of the cylinder head, it's another plastic piece of shit. And after 1,000 heat cycles, turns into cheese. Quite often they leak as well, so keep an eye out for that too. And they are direct injection, so they do suffer badly from coked up inlets. Is that enough from the petrol? Can I stop now? Now, the diesel in these, it actually is much more reliable than the petrols. It's actually used in a bunch of Citroens and Peugeots and Ford products as well. And the Ford products, it's marketed as a Duratorque, fairly common engine. It's got a timing belt, so no timing chain issues, yay. Actually, that's not completely right. They do have a very small timing chain that's inside the head and it just drives the exhaust cam. Now, sometimes in really high mileage examples, that chain can fail or the guide can fail, or the tensioner actually. And when it does, the chain can sometimes break, but most of the time it doesn't actually cause a catastrophic failure. A lot of times you can just put a chain in it and a tensioner and it'll be okay. Not all the time, but sometimes you can get lucky. Turbo issues are also common on the diesels, and again, oil starvation is a factor, so keep the oil fresh. Injector issues in these are somewhat common. Sometimes the injector just fails and creates a misfire, typically quite easy to diagnose, and actually compared to a lot of other stuff in this size and sector, those injectors are relatively inexpensive, so not too big of a drama when they fail. They also have a problem with their injector seals. When they do leak, that creates a whole lot of carbon mess. We call it the Black Death. It can make the injector almost impossible to get out. So if you hear any unusual chuffing noises, it could be an injector seal, so act quickly and get it fixed. Other than that, in these, you have your typical DPF and EGR complications, but not really any more common than other vehicles in this sector. Both the automatic and manual transmissions in these are actually pretty good. The manuals have a dual mass flywheel, which is not uncommon. It is usually the weak point. Now, sometimes you'll just feel a vibration in the clutch pedal when you're using the clutch. Other times it vibrates so bad it feels like it's going to break the car in half. So just keep an eye out for that. Usually feel it going. Now, just looping back to all of these reliability issues, the recommended service intervals on these are 20,000 kilometres. No manufacturer of any engine using whatever long life oil you like is going to last if you only service it every 20,000 Ks. If you want to reduce the likelihood of having serious engine complications, service it every 10,000 kilometres. So to wrap up, look, mechanically and reliability wise, have you heard that saying, if you've got nothing nice to say, well then you shouldn't say anything at all?
So, should you buy one of these? Well, you know what? Let's talk about blue cheese for a second. See, blue cheese is just objectively wrong. It smells disgusting, it looks weird, and it has this disgusting texture to it. But see, to those of us that love this stuff, even though it's objectively wrong, we love it. And weirdly, the more wrong it is, the more we want it. It's a bit like this. See, objectively, the RCZ should be avoided. It's a mess of build quality and reliability issues. It's basically a terrifying depreciation wrapped in a strange ergonomic topped with ongoing repair bills. And yet to the fans, just like me, we love this thing. You probably shouldn't buy one, but in saying that, if you do have the budget and the tolerance to maintain and fix it, well, in that case, you probably still shouldn't buy it. Maybe you should buy one of these instead. But I've got a question for you. If you wouldn't buy that or this, what would you buy instead? Let us know in the comments. See you next time.
So to wrap up, hang on, got to get in character.
Funnily enough, we made a full revideo.